federal charge has been filed against Frank James. This 62-year-old man, police say, is behind the worst assault on New York City's subway system ever. James is accused of using a weapon to cause death or serious injury to passengers on a mass transit system that carries a maximum 20-year sentence. He was arrested by police on Wednesday after a nearly 30-hour search, despite a statewide manhunt, plus the NYPD's $10.4 billion budget, 36,000 police officers, and advanced surveillance technology. The person who gave the tip that led to James's arrest was James. Police sources told NBC News they believe James called the tip line himself and told police he was at a McDonald's on the corner of First Avenue and Lower Manhattan. He was ultimately found 2 blocks away from that location and is now being held without bond. Joining me now, NBC News national security analyst Frank Figliuzzi. He's a former assistant director of the FBI. Frank, James is currently facing a federal charge in this attack. Could he face state charges as well? Help us understand how this works.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. It's quite possible that we'll see the state of New York file charges on him as well for the shootings. But you know the way this works, Zerlina, is the prosecutors will get in a room, federal and state, and they'll just start discussing where the maximum exposure is, meaning what's the toughest sentence that he can face. And that charge turns out to be federal, as you just said, interfering with the operation of a mass transit train. And particularly when there's death or serious bodily harm. But that does not, let's be clear, that's not precluding the state to come in and file its own charges. This guy's going to go away for a very long time, and it's possible he'll do federal time and then do state time if he's still living.
So there was a pile of evidence, and when I say pile, literally he left a pile of evidence with his credit card, the keys to the car that he rented, that U-Haul, also fireworks and ammunition. So it wasn't like the police didn't know who they were looking for. In terms of the evidence that they will try to seek out now, what evidence in terms of new information will police be seeking to find out in order to make the strongest case possible as we go into the criminal process?
Yeah, what they'll be looking for is they'll be combing through all of his social media, his hard drives on his devices, and they'll be looking for evidence of motivation and intent to show a jury this guy intended to do this. There was malice aforethought. There was pre-planning. He thought about this for a long time. They'll be interviewing friends, neighbors, coworkers, anybody that he articulated intentions to, so that they'll try to get around or counter any defense of, hey, I just did this spur of the moment. It wasn't as bad as you think it was. I may have a mental incapacity here. They're going to be looking for that. And motive becomes important, Zerlina, because it's possible, based on some of the social media postings we've seen so far, that he may have had a racial bias and intention here. And if that's true, we're talking about yet another federal or state charge in terms of hate crime. But I want to focus on your comments on the pile of evidence left, thankfully. We've had a heck of a week here, and the week's not over. And that one of the evidence items found, of course, was his Glock 9mm pistol. And one of the reasons the ATF was so quickly able to identify him by name was because that gun was purchased legally and had a serial number on it. And they immediately went back and traced it to a purchase in Ohio, linked directly to him. Why am I bringing this up and referring to this week? We started this week on Monday with President Biden's press conference at the White House announcing what he was doing against ghost guns, right? And announcing a new nominee for ATF director. We need a law against ghost guns. So now we've got to put a serial number on ghost gun, private manufactured guns. We can trace them. We can't right now until Biden makes this happen. He did on Monday, but we have no action on Congress on pending legislation. So if this guy in New York had a ghost gun, no serial number, we still would have a weak case on him because we couldn't trace it. And as far as an ATF director, we haven't had an ATF director in 7 years. Biden has nominated a guy by the name of Steve Dettelbach, former U.S. attorney. He needs to get in place. We need an ATF with leadership.
It's really important context there. I mean, I imagine if they didn't trace the gun, they would have had to rely upon the fact that he told them he was standing on the corner of First Avenue. But that's a different piece of evidence there. Frank, in terms of that point, I mean, I'm being sarcastic about it. I'm joking about it. But in all seriousness, the NYPD has a budget of $10 billion. He called the police and told him, I'm standing on the corner of First Avenue at the McDonald's, which is like a landmark you would give if you were giving somebody walking directions. And apparently they didn't come right away. So he was like walking around because he was, I guess passing the time here. Where is that budget going, if not for a specific situation like this one? That's why they have the big budget, because they have to deal with these emergency situations and terrorism. What happened here?
Yeah, and look, you're bringing up a good point, and let's layer on top of that the fact that the cameras, the MTA cameras in that particular subway station didn't function properly, and it caused the police to have to look at prior stations and subsequent stations to see what direction he may have come from or go in. So we don't have everything working optimally. Those of us who've spent a career in law enforcement know cameras don't work when you need them to work. But with all the money being spent on the NYPD, MTA, all the equipment, you've got to demand that they work, and you've got to upgrade this. We've also, learned that there wasn't any lockdown or even a real discussion of lockdown. Remember the Boston Marathon bombing and the manhunt where they locked down Boston? They closed Logan Airport. We didn't see that happen here. Now, I'm not saying that it should have happened, but I have to wonder why it did not. Was it that there was not an active pursuit, a chase, as there was in Boston, where they were on these bombers? I don't know, but I'm uncomfortable with the fact that not only did the camera not work, but they didn't seem to lock a perimeter down fast enough. And here we are, as you say, left with the subject to call in and say, here I am.
I know exactly where that McDonald's is as well. And so the idea that he was standing on First, that's not like a obscure McDonald's off on a side street. It's like a main corner in Lower Manhattan. Frank Figliuzzi, thank you for helping us understand this really important and serious story. I just feel like they could use the budget a little bit better. Please stay safe.
Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.